Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Agent Psycho, aka Sniper98. This video is going to be quite familiar to those of you who were already keeping up with my videos from last year, since I made a video quite similar to this one for the original run of the Prison Tower event. Back then, I thought you could take any support unit you wanted for all the challenge quests, but that's not true. You can only do so for the second half of the 7th challenge quest and the new 8th quest. So if you didn't know this before and you were planning to just have your support carry you all week, yeah, that ain't gonna work. Assuming that the rerun works exactly how it did last year, the support that you're forced to take is Dantes, who thankfully is level 90 and is MP4, though unfortunately his skills are only 662. For several of these quests, he will be one of the most important members on your team, so despite what you might have heard from other FGO YouTubers who make servant review videos, he has the potential to come in quite handy or even clutch for this event. And finally, since I already played through this event last year, for those of you who started playing FGO after the original run of Prison Tower, I'd like to point you to the streams that I did for this event. I even made an hour-long video beating all these quests with free-to-play teams, humble brag here, so if you've never played the event before and you want to see roughly what you should expect in these challenge quests, go to the description of this video or check the pinned comment and click on the link. As a matter of fact, the teams I'll be recommending here are the same ones that I used in that video, so if you want to see those teams in action, you should check out that video anyway. Am I doing the whole YouTube shilling thing right? Oh sorry, what was that? Oh, I need to do more fake giveaways and complain about the future of NAFGO? Alright, I'll get on that real quick. Anyways, let's get to some actual FGO content, which we all know is having story time by reading wikis for FGO. This is what the first quest looks like. Each quest in this event has a gimmick or two featured in them. For this one, Phantom in Wave 3 has a skill that debuffs your front line with an 80% quick reduction for about 5 turns, according to the wiki. Go figure. The team I used for this was Hector, Santa Alter, Caster Liz, Support Dantes, Nobu, and Media. Use the first wave to charge up everyone's MPs as much as possible, and then nuke the second wave with Hector's and Santa Alter's MPs to go straight into the third wave. Once you're at Wave 3, expect Hector and Santa Alter to die off really quick, since they're both counterclassed here. Use Caster Liz's MP to damage the Wave 3 enemies as much as possible. Dantes himself isn't too important here, so just use him to tack on some extra damage before he dies. Remember that he has no survival skill and he's got very low HP, so if Phantom NPs, he's basically dead without any defense buffs. His third skill is a charge drain though, so he can stall Phantom from MPing like once, but that's really about it. Nobu's only really there to help take out the skellies. If you don't have Nobu, just bring a strong AoE archer that you might have. Nobu doesn't need to worry about killing Phantom because that's Media's job. She should be your anchor for reasons that should be obvious, but in case they aren't, she's a single target caster with the potential to spam her own MP all by herself, which is good in case she ends up being the last one standing. Her Divine Words also insta-charges her MP at only level 4, so the instant she comes in from the backline, you can stab the fuck out of Phantom. This is what the second quest looks like. The gimmick here is that Fergus has a self-charge skill, so he'll be able to charge his MP potentially a lot faster than usual if you get bad RNG with him. The team I used was George, Hans, Ushi, Teach, Dantes, and Uriel, and be prepared to see a lot of George, Hans, and Ushi throughout this video. George can tank the Assassin Chimeras in Wave 1 so that Hans and Ushi can charge up their MPs, Hans for a stronger overcharge effect on his MP, and Ushi to kill the demon in Wave 2. In the run that I did last year, I had George die because I concentrated on trying to get Ushi's MP up as quickly as possible. You can actually try to have George survive into Wave 2 and instead aim to kill the Chimeras as fast as possible with Hans' face cards. The reason for this is because the demon in Wave 2 is only level 42, and both George and Ushi are riders, so it won't do a lot of damage, or at least it shouldn't, unless it just crits Hans over and over and over, which may or may not please Honako. Also, you gain 20% extra MP generation if your servants attack caster enemies, regardless of your servant's class, so charging Ushi's MP off the demon should be quite easy. If you do manage to keep George alive into Wave 2, try to charge both his and Ushi's MPs. That way you can kill the demon with one of them and still have one to take with you into Wave 3, where you'll face Fergus and a regular Zerg Chimera. Target the Chimera first because it'll crit your entire party to death if you don't focus it first. Use whichever MP you saved to kill it in like a turn or two. In case the Chimera kills off your riders before they can NP it, have your support Dantes as 4th instead of Teach like I did so that he can come in quickly and kill off the Chimera before it does more damage, since as an Avenger, Dantes absolutely wrecks Zergs, though the same goes the other way around too, so once Dantes hits the field, you need to kill off the Chimera as fast as possible. Like Medi in the first quest, Yurio should be your anchor, again for obvious reasons, and even more so now that she's got her third skill, that she didn't have last year by the way, that buffs her arts cards for 3 turns. Once she's on the field, she should prioritize killing Fergus as soon as possible because he's got an AoE MP, and his self-charge gimmick can make him use it faster than normal. One thing you should note is that Fergus' first skill, Bravery, increases his mental debuff resist from 20 to 40%, which means he can resist charm skills on top of having magic resist B, which gives another 17.5% debuff resist. So there's always a good chance that Yuri's charms will whiff. If you happen to have Kazgil, who I know isn't really a quote-unquote free-to-play servant, consider bringing him along because his third skill increases party debuff success chance for 3 turns, which should greatly increase Yuri's chances of charming Fergus, if that's actually how his skill works. But it also buffs party arts performance for 3 turns too, so more or less it's perfect for Yuri here. Teach ended up not being all that useful outside of his Voyager skills, so treat him as a wild card and put in anyone that you have that you think would be a good buffer or has good team utility for this quest. Also, last year, Ushi didn't have her evade yet either because it's her third skill that she gets from strengthening quests, kind of like Yurio's own third skill, so this year she should be able to survive longer now that she does have it. This is what the third quest looks like. The gimmick here is that Caster Gills has a skill that debuffs your front line's MP damages by 20%. I don't personally know how long this debuff lasts since it's a skill that Caster Gills needs to physically activate rather than it being an auto cast at the start of wave 3. And because when I did this quest last year, he didn't even use the skill at all. But be on the lookout if and when he does use it. It's not the worst debuff ever anyway, and you can either remove it or get around it with other buff stacks. The team I used was George, Hans, Ushi, Medea, Dantes, and Santa Alter. Just like in the second quest, use George on wave 1 to protect Hans and Ushi so they can charge up their MPs, but unlike the second quest, because the golems here are just berserkers, George has a better chance at surviving into the second wave. Try to get both Ushi's and George's MPs charged, and use the golem in wave 2 to charge up whatever's left, but don't hang around too long there, since by the time you get to wave 2, George's taunt's probably worn off, and the golem here can actually do some serious damage to your front line if you're not careful, because he's a berserker. The faster you can kill it while also taking at least 1 MP with you into wave 3, the better. Wave 3 is the trickiest not because of Caster Gills' gimmick, but because of the 2 demons who show up with him, who are both a rider and an assassin. This means that your front line will always be counterclass at some point with this team that I'm suggesting, and from personal experience, it felt like the demons sort of knew who to attack to do the most damage, so expect some RNG shenanigans from them. How you want to approach this wave is up to you. After reviewing my own run from last year, I would recommend targeting the demons first, since they both have much less HP and have much greater DPS than Caster Gills in my opinion. I targeted the Assassin Demon first though, which I think was a mistake. Instead, try to kill off the Rider Demon first. Hans MP doesn't do damage, and Ushi and George are both counterclass if they try to attack the Assassin Demon, who also has a 3-tick MP, so good luck trying to kill that one before it uses its own MP. Put it this way, if you get a hand that has a lot of Hans cards, target the Assassin Demon, and if you get a lot of Rider cards, just go for the Rider Demon. You can let the Assassin Demon use his MP, it's fine. It might either kill George or Ushi unless they can survive it by using Guts or Evade, as long as you kill the Rider Demon before it MPs too. The MP you should be careful of is Caster Gills, because his is AoE and he's high enough level where he can definitely one-shot your low star servants. So, kill off the Rider Demon first, and then the Assassin Demon, and then Caster Gills. At some point either George or Ushi should die due to the Assassin Demon, so you can use Medea who comes in to kill off the Assassin Demon easily with just one of her MPs. Once both demons are dead, Dantes and Santa Alter should basically just be cleanup duty. The fourth quest looks like this. There are 2 gimmicks this time. Saber Gills has a skill that charges all enemy MPs in wave 3 by 1, so basically Fergus's gimmick on crack. And the French soldier who shows up with him and Jean also has a unique skill that puts a forced taunt on one of your frontline servants for 2 turns. The potential danger with this taunt is that if Saber Gills uses his MP to buff himself and he crits, he can insta-melt the servant who got taunted, so you can see how this is really bad if someone in your team that you absolutely don't want to lose gets taunted. Also, Jean as an enemy tends to crit quite a bit too, thanks to her revelation skill, so that's also something to look out for. The team I used was George, Nobu, Shiki, Dantes, Yuri, and Robin. Again, just like the last two quests, use George to taunt while Nobu and Shiki get their MPs charged in Wave 1, and use their MPs to blast your way through Wave 2 to get to Wave 3. Shiki is important here because in case Shadow Marie uses her invul, Shiki can just hit right through it with her Mystic Eyes. Shiki is also potentially very important in Wave 3 as well. The French soldier that can put taunts on your team is just a regular mob with a unique skill, that's it. Meaning that it should be relatively easy for Shiki to just insta-kill it with her NP. So try to reload Shiki's MP so that she can insta-kill the French soldier, and even better if you can somehow keep Shiki's Mystic Eyes skill just so that she can insta-kill him much more reliably. And it's not just the soldier, Jean's NP casts invul on the whole enemy team, so if Shiki happens to have Mystic Eyes active during a turn after Jean uses her NP, she can also hit right through that. Once the French soldier is gone, focus Saber Gills down first as he's the next big threat, and then Jean. Remember that Jean stuns herself after using her NP, and because of how enemies take turns due to positioning on the screen, Saber Gills can only act once while Jean is on the field, even if Jean is stunned. So as long as she doesn't crit like a maniac, Jean is more or less a non-factor. Everyone behind your initial front line should more or less be just cleanup duty. Dantes is also very important here thanks to his class advantage against rulers, so use him to take out Jean quickly once everyone else is dead. The fifth quest looks like this. The gimmick here is probably the scariest one so far. Caligula has a skill that gives himself an 80% increase to his crit chance. And since enemy berserkers typically have a base 10% chance to crit at any given time, in total he's got a 90% chance to crit, just about, with any of his attacks once this skill is active. The good thing about this gimmick is that it's not an auto-cast, and instead it's just a 3-turn buff, so every time it goes away he does need to recast it again, though I'm not sure if he's able to stack this skill so that it's basically always active. There's also a second gimmick that the Homunculi in Wave 3 have, and that's a skill that only they can use that heals the whole party in Wave 3 by 6000 HP. The team I used was Caesar, Perry, Han, Saber Gills, Fergus, and Dantes. The Homunculi in Wave 1 aren't that strong, so George isn't really needed here to tank. Use Wave 1 to charge up MPs for Perry and Caesar. If you have a CE that has starting charge, give it to Caesar since he has a bit of a hard time charging his MP due to his deck and his low hit counts. Once you reach Wave 2, use their MPs to kill off the Homunculus first. You can deal with the dolls because they're assassins, and as long as Caesar uses MP to help kill the Homunculus, he's done his job and it's alright if he dies after that. In fact, you want either him or Perry to die after the Homunculus is dead so that your fourth can come in and start charging their MPs using the assassin dolls. I use Saber Gills here, but only because he was the only other 3-star Saber and we didn't have Bedivere yet at the time. If you do have Bedivere, which you should if you beat Camelot, take him instead because his MP actually does damage unlike Saber Gills. Also, Bedivere is just better than Saber Gills. Period. Try to get his MP charged as much as possible going into Wave 3. Caligula should be your highest priority in Wave 3. If you kill out the Homunculi first, you potentially give Caligula even more chances to attack, which means that he can nuke 2 of your servants at a time, which is obviously really bad. Ignore the Homunculi's heal skills. 6k HP seems like a lot at first, but ultimately it's not really gonna matter, and sometimes you want them to waste their turns doing nothing but healing themselves so that your own servants can last a bit longer. If Caligula kills off enough of your servants and forces Dantes in, prioritize keeping Dantes safe because his damage against Caligula, who's a berserker, is critical in killing him off as quickly as you can. The Homunculi aren't strong enough to be a serious threat, even when they do use their MPs. Just make sure to bring servants who have actual survival skills to tank them. This is the 6th quest. There's actually no real gimmick here, but you should know that the Wyvern Origin in Wave 2 has a skill that casts invul on itself, and it can get pretty annoying if you don't have anyone who can invul pierce. The team I used was George, Shiki, Ushi, Hans, Dantes, and Lubu. You should know why George is here. Use him to tank the first wave and have Shiki and Ushi charge their MPs, and use Shiki's MP to kill the Wyvern Origin. It can also be insta-killed, so if Shiki insta-kills it, even better. Wave 3 with Jean and Amakusa is actually pretty straightforward. Just have George, Ushi, and Shiki do as much damage as they can before they die. Because you're up against double rulers, they can't do much damage to them, and Amakusa's MP removes buffs before applying damage, meaning that all evasion skills and invul skills are useless because they're considered buffs, and thus get removed first before Amakusa deals his damage. Instead, you'll need to rely on the second half of your team to finish the job. Dantes obviously has class advantage, but Lubu is the only 3-star single target berserker in the game, and Zerks still do 50% extra damage against rulers, so he's a natural fit here. But since it's unlikely you'll ever get his MP charge at all, just bring whatever berserker you have to increase your DPS against John and Amakusa. Kill Amakusa first since he's obviously the much bigger threat. Once he's dead, just like the last time you fought John, the quest is smooth sailing. Just make sure she doesn't crit Dantes to death, and you'll be fine. The 7th quest is a 2-parter, and the first part looks like this. Again, just like the previous one, this quest doesn't really have a gimmick per se. It's literally just a bunch of assassin ghosts with a big boy ghost as the boss in Wave 3. This quest is designed to be a battle of attrition, and so just take all casters and, dare I say, stall your way through it all. The team I used was Media, Caster Liz, Hans, Perry, Shakespeare, and Dantes. I do know that you can insta-kill the big ghost in Wave 3 since I was able to do it to the big ghost that you fought during the Kara no Kyokai event on the last quest on the rooftops, unless it's specifically tagged to be immune to insta-kill for this particular event, which I don't know if it is. So if you're feeling risky, or if you don't want to stare at your phone screen for a freaking hour as you fight the big ghost, you can try bringing someone who can insta-kill to see if you can do just that. But don't expect to pull it off in your first try. The second half is you just fighting Dantes by himself, and he's got 500,000 HP. Good luck. However, the good news is that you can start bringing your own regular supports this time, since obviously you can't bring a support Dantes. So if you happen to have an OP support, abuse the hell out of them. The team that I used was Lubu, George, Support Waver, Yuri, Yichiki, and Fergus. Because there's no gimmick with the Dantes fight, and because Dantes is just by himself, this fight is actually quite simple. It just might be a bit difficult for some of you and might take a few retries. Now, because this is a rerun, they've added a new 8th quest. It's a boss rush, so every wave 3 from all the quests so far get thrown together for one final battle. And so it looks kind of like this. Good luck! Truth be told, if your name isn't Honako or Cairo, I'm not sure if you can beat this without command spells using just free-to-play servants and craft essences. At the very least, you'll probably have to use a stall team of some kind to make it far at all, preferably with a max-leveled and max-skill eggplant Kohai. The good thing is that they don't have their gimmicks from before, at least the wiki doesn't say, so the only one that does exist is that Dantes apparently has increased charm resistance just for this quest, meaning that Yuri or other charm lockers can't charm lock him as easily. Bring your absolute strongest servants and CEs for this fight and be prepared to slog it out. A few final notes to end on. This video assumes that you are a pure free-to-play with no 4 or 5 star CEs and only welfare servants or worse, which means that it should be very easy to improve upon these teams that I suggest here for you in this video by inserting whatever SR or SSR servants that you might have in your own accounts. Because if these teams work that you see on screen, whatever you do to improve them should also work too. Lastly, do not be afraid to use command spells wherever and whenever necessary. These are called challenge quests for a reason. They're meant to be difficult, and there's nothing wrong with burning a CS or 2 to help you secure a win, unlike what some people think, because they think that not having to use any command spells is some kind of weird badge of honor or something that they can wear to brag to their friends on Facebook, which they probably don't give a shit about. Just remember that each CS refreshes at 4 PM Pacific every day, so if you do need to use them wisely. And if you're going to try the final quest and you're not confident that your team by itself can clear it in one go, try saving up your command spells so that you can revive your team entirely when they do go down. And that's the video! Thanks for watching, and hopefully this will help those of you who haven't played the Prison Tower event yet to get through these quests, though I can only tell you good luck for the final one.